If there's one thing everyone is tired of hearing about, it's student debt. But let's be honest, you're sick of it for different reasons. The left wants some magic wand, and the right wants to wag their finger at you like a disappointed parent. And the people stuck in the middle are like a child of divorce having to pick a side. But that tiny overlap in frustration might be the only chance to fix a system people are more tired of than a lame and sad YouTube host.
Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad.
Okay, my people, let's dig into this mess. Now, some analysts argue that student debt functions less like an investment and more like a generational economic weight around the neck of over 43 million people. I think all of us, right, left, MAGA, Marxist, can agree that the math on this debt doesn't quite add up. In my case, and many others, student debt has doubled what was borrowed. That's like getting married and your partner gains 200 pounds. You're thinking, I didn't sign up for this. Ah, but you did, and it's in the fine print. And that's the rub, isn't it, folks? The gotcha moment the bureaucrats live for. Now, my friends on the right love to talk about personal responsibility. Fine, I'm a big fan of it myself, and I'll take responsibility for what I borrowed. But where's the responsibility for the government backed system that functions like a Las Vegas bookie on steroids? Doubling the debt through compounding interest isn't free market, it's a predatory racket. If you think that's conservative values, you've been reading the wrong books.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levine.
Look, people, debt like this will obviously become an economic drag on those burdened with it. Sadly, though, and again, my friends on the right miss this sometimes, it can also bring down entire local economies and communities. There's the psychological shackles of this debt that is, in the immortal words of a hippie,
This is a bummer, man.
now stick with me through all this and hopefully we can figure out if something can be done about it. But now, I'm ready for my close up, so cue the sad music. I owe over $100,000 in student debt. But here's the kicker. I only borrowed a little over $60,000. How the fuck did that happen? Well, with compounding interest, penalties, fees, deferment, the usual bureaucratic vultures that circle the carcass. And here's the punchline. I don't even have a degree. I'm 4 classes away, but life had other plans. Go ahead, laugh. I do. It's either that or cry myself to sleep every night.
Are you a stupid person?
Look, I own the original debt, but doubling the amount you borrowed is straight up loan shark shit. I think we can all agree on that. Hell, I'd probably get better numbers going to an actual loan shark for Christ's sake. And sadly, I'm not an isolated incident. There's millions of stories out there the same or worse than mine. People at a very young age in most cases that have almost no concept of how bad debt is are signing their lives away to obtain a piece of paper that supposedly grants them a better life. I mean, come on. Kids fresh out of high school that probably don't have a clear idea of what they want to do for the rest of their lives are falling into this trap, not realizing how much that debt can blow up and expand like a debt-sized blob. Look, is this original debt valid? Yes, that's not an argument. What is invalid is how this debt is designed to compound and cripple people that don't fully understand it. This has been happening to millions of people for years. And like a festering cyst, it's getting ready to pop. We need to decide to lance it now or just let it go and ooze misery all over the place. You're welcome for that visual. Now, what's the economic cost of all this debt? Because if you think it only affects the people that owe it, you're right. Technically, think about this though. What happens when millions of people start adulthood underwater? Well, they spend less. Less on housing, less on cars, less on local businesses. For instance, if more than half the people in your town suddenly had to send a huge chunk of their paycheck to a bill that never shrinks, what isn't getting those dollars? Well, restaurants, shops, housing, repairs, etc. Everything that keeps a local economy breathing. And when enough people tighten their belts at the same time, the whole community feels it. Even the people that did everything right. It's what economists call a drag on growth. There's no fancy word for it. It's just exactly what it is. What does this mean for non-borrowers though? Well, let's say you're in car sales And it just so happens you live in an area where a lot of people have student debt. They start tightening up their purse strings and maybe they don't buy that new car when they should. Try to squeeze out a few more miles on their current car. Then you don't make your sales quota. So you have to start cutting back. And maybe you decide not to put a new deck on. Your coworker didn't meet either, and they decide to put off doing some repairs on their home. Now, local contractors are not working, and some may have to close up shop.
And so on, and so on, and so on.
Get it? This isn't just a my problem. It's systemic rot. When a whole generation is underwater, they aren't buying cars, they aren't buying decks, and they aren't starting businesses. To the right, this is your trickle down, except it's a trickle down of stagnation. To the left, your forgive it all plan doesn't fix the fact that the universities are still overcharging for degrees that are increasingly worthless. You're both treating the symptom while the patient's heart is stopping. But you know what? Let's look on the bright side. Maybe people don't have to stop spending and can find a way to still get the essentials done by cutting back on their retirement savings. They need the cash now, so dip into it and contribute the bare minimum. Well, 20, 30 years later, it's going to catch up. Retirees that had to pay for student debt may not even be able to afford the necessities. It's a long-term financial instability that the entire community will eventually pay for. Regardless if you have student debt or not, the slowdown doesn't ask your political affiliation. It shows up at your driveway like Ray Liotta in Goodfellas. Is this a definite? Maybe not. But loans are coming due and there will be repercussions. Even if you don't know, it's possible these student loan Reaganomics are going to trickle right down to you. And trust me, it's not the trickle you were promised. In addition to that, what about the psychological cost of this debt? It used to be that adulthood started with a foundation. You could get a good paying career, possibly out of high school. You save some money, and then the first major debt you would take on would be a house. Now, houses aren't even on the table for most people. 40 years ago, people were buying homes under the age of 30. Today, the median first-time home buyer is 38, the oldest in history, and student debt is one of the biggest reasons why. And when home ownership gets pushed back, everything else gets pushed back with it. Marriage, kids, stability, the whole timeline. This kind of debt rewires your entire life plan. It's like a background hum of financial anxiety. Like you're behind before you even start. People with this debt are in a Kia Rio trying to win the Cannonball Run.
Dun, dun, dun.
God damn, I love that movie. This is given another fancy name, economic shackling. You know what? Economists really need to step their name game up, right? Come on. I call it waking up every day, feeling like you're trying to build a future on quicksand while you're watching the lifestyle your parents could obtain, fairly younger than yourselves, drift further into the horizon, only being able to reach it when it's too late and you're on the wrong side of the average lifespan. My God, that's bleaker than watching Requiem for a Dream while listening to The Cure's pornography album during a polar night. I need a drink after that one. But before I go reaching for that bottle, let's address the elephant in the room. Fairness. How is absolving student debt fair to those who have either paid it all off or never had it? Well, my friends, it's not. I absolutely can't sit here and tell you it's fair to just wipe away almost $2 trillion, yes, trillion dollars in debt for people that chose to take that debt on. If I could, I'd be in politics. What I can say is fairness and justice aren't always the same thing. So maybe we try to look at it a different way. If a building is on fire, you don't refuse to rescue the people still inside just because some folks made it out earlier. Some escaped before the flames got too bad. Some may have never went in the building because they didn't trust it in the first place. But the people still inside, you don't leave them there just to prove a point about personal responsibility. You still pull them out because it's the only way to save the neighborhood. And I'm not even talking about complete absolution of the debt. Would that work? Shit fucking yes, it would. But most people aren't talking about that. What I'm talking about is a break on the parasitic vulture-like lending. We're talking about a system worse than a street corner loan shark, where the US government is charging so much over the VIG that it's doubling the cost of the loan before you even get your first paycheck. That's not a conservative fiscal policy. It's criminal. To go back to the analogy, they're basically leaving you stranded in that burning building unless you pay them. Then, once you do, they're making you carry them down the steps to freedom. Honestly, look at the landscape. If you're more outraged by a student getting a break than a billionaire getting a subsidy, your moral compass is spinning. We live in a world where the government lets taxpayer money fund lavish lifestyles for fraudsters while telling a 22-year-old they're a moral failure because they can't outrun 100% APR. Would you feel good making a payment on a debt that's rigged worse than the 2008 bailouts? Christ, wasn't it hard enough to pay taxes this year knowing about all that Minnesota fraud? Imagine doing that every single month to a system that's actively trying to keep you underwater.
It's the worst part of the game. It's what? Taxes.
And what if adjustments are off the table? Maybe you think all these fees are fair and people need to take responsibility for their debt. Okay, then what about this? Allow student loans to be included in bankruptcy. If people need to pay some price for this debt and can't just get off scot-free, make people go through bankruptcy and have that on their record. That would also prevent people that could afford the debt taking advantage of these adjustments as well. Either of these options can be a lifeboat for millions of people that really need one, and soon. Obviously, this video is personal, but it's also timely. Loan payments are restarting, and the one relief that was out there, the income-driven repayment, is going away or at least changing. A lot of people are worried this could be the point where all these pressures hit at once, financially, emotionally, and culturally. That's why this conversation isn't abstract. It's getting ready to happen, and it could be crippling to borrowers and their communities. So we either lance this fester and cyst or let it ooze. But don't tell me there's no money for a solution when the VIG on these loans is doubling the cost. That's loan shark logic, plain and simple. Take some responsibility? Sure. But let's have the government take some too. Include it in bankruptcy. Stop the vulture fees. Or just keep telling us to pay me while the building burns down around us.
Oh, you had a fire? Fuck you, pay me.
And on that note, I'm done. It's a lot to chew on, but the truth usually is. Press those buttons to like and subscribe if you're so inclined. You know the drill. Until we meet again, live unrepentant.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.